All right, I believe we are live. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Um, my name is Andy Saldana, and we are here with the What Leaders Are Doing Differently in 2022 session. I want to thank everybody for making it today, and we have a really fantastic conversation set for you with Sue Melone from Insperity. Before we get started, as always, I just want to do a few quick thank yous and announcements for the community, and then we'll get right into the conversation. Um, Again, my name is Andy Saldana. I'm the Executive Director of New York Tech Alliance. And a little bit about New York Tech Alliance. We are a nonprofit organization here in New York City, driving access, equity, and inclusion within the New York tech community to make it the most diverse and dynamic in the world. We hope that you continue to be a part of the community and learn more about us at nytech.org. If you need anything at all, please feel free to reach out to me at andy@nytech.org. A quick privacy statement is that we are videotaping, recording this event for archive purposes and to share it later. So if you add anything in the chat or a question, we might put it on stage, so just be cognizant of that. If you prefer not to, just say please don't show, and we won't be sure to make sure that that happens. Let's see. Again, thank you to all of our annual partners that make everything that we do possible. Everybody from Crown Castle to Eisner Amper, Google, of course, Nation Builder, and then, of course, Insperity, who is sponsoring today's event. So a very special thank you to Insperity. You can learn more about Insperity, their products, and how they're making HR easy for any business. So I encourage you to check them out at insperity.com. If you'd like what we're doing and you want to support New York Tech Alliance, we hope that you make a donation when you RSVP for one of our virtual events. We are keeping our events free until we're back in person, so any small donation helps us. You can also become an individual or corporate member and show your support that way by creating that annual membership. Or simply just make a small donation at any time on our website by clicking support on our website. And then we have a couple of amazing events coming up in the next week. The beginning of February is off to a very busy start. So in addition to today's events, we're also organizing our first New York Tech Meetup of 2022. It's happening on Tuesday, February the 8th at 5:30 p.m. It'll be taking place in this AirMeet platform. And we have 4 amazing companies that will be demoing brand new products all about productivity and community during this new year. And then on Thursday, February the 10th at 11:30, if you are an early stage startup founder or startup founder who needs help with their pitch, we are running a workshop called Nailing the Investor Pitch. We have 3 amazing pitch coaches. The conversation is being led by Paul Ellis, who runs a number of our events, and it's going to be a really great interactive event. So if you need help with your pitch, I encourage you to check us out on Thursday, February 10th as well. And then if you miss any of our events or if you want to rewatch any of our conversations, you can always subscribe to our YouTube channel and see all of our events that we've done over the last couple of years there. We encourage you to subscribe, and yeah, we'll see you at all of our events, I hope. And then with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Sue. So let me bring Sue to the stage. Give me one moment. Sue, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, there you are. Perfect. Thank you. Welcome, Sue. I'm going to leave the slide up for just a moment, but before we get to it and talk about what we're talking about today, you know, Sue, you're an amazing management consultant, leadership consultant with Insperity. I would love for you to just give a quick, brief introduction of yourself for everybody in the audience.
Well, thank you, Andy. Audience, everyone there, I've talked to a few of you already this morning. Good morning on the East Coast. I'm here in Portland, Oregon. Just looks like the sun might make an appearance today. Gosh, I used to live out on the East Coast, so I'm ready to listen to all those accents that I miss. My mom still lives out there. Yeah, I've had an awesome journey, team. You can read about it in LinkedIn if you're bored. But what I'm thrilled to be able to do in my life in this long journey is help really smart people do things even better than they ever expected. I've had a great time doing that. I currently work for Insperity as a senior consultant, where I love working with middle-sized companies and helping them. They're in that great growth space and helping them really take that next leap or two with their teams. I get to do that with several dozen clients every day. It's kind of crazy, but it's awesome, and I barely sleep, and I love it. So I'm thrilled to be here today. I'm really looking forward to some good exchange. And thank you, Andy and team, for inviting me.
Absolutely. And just a few quick housekeeping notes for everybody in the audience. I encourage you to put your questions in the Q&A or in the chat function throughout the event. We will definitely be looking for more interaction with the audience during the event, so get your questions ready, and we're here to answer or try to answer or connect you to the resources that will help you answer any questions that you have. And then if you want to show us some love during the event, there's this nice little emotion reaction thing that exists down at the bottom, and that helps us just make sure that we're moving, that we're engaging you, and we're keeping the conversation going. So we appreciate any love that you can share that way. And with that, we're going to get into today's conversation. So, Stu, again, thank you so much for joining. The title of this presentation is "What Leaders Are Doing Differently in 2022," and the last few years have been such a roller coaster ride for everybody, and there's not one person in the world that hasn't been impacted in any way, and so I think it's a unique time. It's a unique situation. We keep hearing unprecedented times, unprecedented change, but we're really feeling it. And especially in business and in leadership roles, we're experiencing constant change and constant maneuvering that we as business leaders are having to navigate in order to continue to run our businesses, in order to think about scaling, to think about productivity, to think about team management and motivation. And the motivations that we had 2 years ago have completely changed. A lot of us are reassessing our lives, reassessing our values. Like there's so many different distractions and different pieces that are coming at us, and so that's a lot. That's a lot of things. And so today, I hope that you and I can have a conversation to talk through, what can leaders do in this moment and in the next year to really leverage the talent, leverage the value, grow their opportunities in a healthy and holistic way. So you and I have been talking for quite some time, getting prepared for this, and we've prepared a few themes for today. And I'm leaving these up for the audience to kind of digest, and we'll be hitting a little bit of this in the conversation. And I won't go through them all right now. We'll hit them again. I'll bring them back up at the end of the conversation and see how we did on hitting them. But again, this is going to be a pretty open conversation. We're looking for community interactive. But to start, I'm going to go ahead and stop the presentation for a moment and just get into conversation with you, and ask you kind of like, what are you seeing with your clients, with your customers out in the world? What are the biggest issues? Just a broad overview as to like what is it like today to be a leader?
Yeah, well, I think I'm going to show a lot of bias, I think, in this conversation, Andy, because I think being a leader, we've all chosen to be one, and it is the best, hardest, toughest job there is. And if you're doing it, that's why you love it. This is a time that's going to bring out, as I frame it, the best in us as a leader. I've got a quote up here. I've got many quotes up here that I can look at. One of them is, "Change is constant. Everything's connected. Pay attention." Right. And so when I think about all the leaders I work with and others in this universe and things that are going on, there's a confluence of so many things happening in life and in our political sphere, all the different aspects of living. And it's all kind of coming to bear on us right now in this human experience. And so, we use terms like it's the Great Resignation, the Great Enlightenment. I think people are coming up with some really good words for that. How I like to see it is this is, this, like I said, confluence of opportunity for us for a lot of things that we've known, that are out there that we could be working on to make things better, to help all of this talent that we have do better. And now we really are standing, we're not even at the gate. We kind of got dropped in to this new frontier. And we have lots of work to do and lots of opportunity in front of us, probably more than ever. And things are moving so fast right now. I wake up every day thinking of what kind of opportunity we have. What is this teaching us? How do we leverage it? And it's all about human connection, or what we can do connected as humans. And this last piece of time, these last couple of years in particular, have kind of helped us shift, I think, from leading businesses to leading whole humans through a very complex ecosystem of things. And and I don't think there's anything back there that we're going to go travel back to.
Yeah, I agree with you on that piece. I know that, just in leading a business during this time, you realize that theme of connectedness, right? Like everything is connected. And we talked about work-life balance in the past. It's been this slogan that's been thrown out prior to COVID about work-life balance and how to maintain that, and you keeping your business life separate than your personal life, and how do you maintain the right balance between the two. And I think one of the things that quickly became apparent during the pandemic was that is impossible to do, right? Like we were in each other's homes for the first time in a way that I don't think anybody really expected that to happen, and we were seeing our coworkers and our employees live their lives while conducting these Zoom meetings and these virtual meetings, and how those lives were impacting the hours that they were working, the ability for them to allocate certain hours, block of hours to concentrate. And I think that has been really interesting. And as we moved through the pandemic, we started talking about well, what is the new workplace going to be, and how are we going to move back into offices? Are we going to ever move back into offices? And as a leader, it's a daunting thing, because you're managing a workforce with so many different needs and pieces that are all super connected. So I would love to hear your thoughts on the future of what the office looks like, and the future of how leaders, especially those that are in charge of teams that need to collaborate, are thinking about office structure in the future.
You bet. Well, let's, if we can, Andy, let's back up one click to what is work? I think we're having, our relationship with work is evolving, and to the point where it's going to require not only new physical models, but mental models about work. And this awakening, I don't think anyone, maybe nobody will disagree with me, that at least some aspects of work for us were unhealthy. And we knew that. We kept kind of charging on, unhealthy to ourselves, to our team, and even to the environment, to the things around us. And so again, that, I see this as our opportunity, concentrated to say, what do we want to do about that? What is work to us? What do we want our relationship to be? So I see some things emerging. I see some, one of the things I have on my wall here is, this concept of I am a business of one. I have the set of skills and talents and passions and things, and more of this kind of gig mindset where can I take this? How do I want to use this? Where am I when I'm using it? What's involved? Is it about skills or title or money or people or how I'm connected to those things? And that's some things, we're not going to have any answers today, I don't think. I think one of the big themes of today is like there are a lot of experiments going along, and there will be more in the future as things go on. Another topic in that same realm is this idea of synchronous and asynchronous work. Like, for many of us in the past, our talk of the day was like, oh, so-and-so came in 10 minutes late. Well, that is, where's that these days? There's a lot of talk about how much of it needs to be like we're all like 10 to 3, at the same time, and how much of it can be, I can do it at midnight tonight. I'm a night person. I'd love to work, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. or whatever that would be, because that's when my mind works best. But some of that, I'm seeing a lot of people kind of grappling with, like, what part of what I'm doing needs to do that. And that requires some things that we knew before in the past as leaders. We needed to get better at setting clear goals, communicating, two-way communication. That's kind of conjuring up, what we want to do. There's a great, and I put it in the links that I think you'll share with the team. Deloitte put out a great, like, future-looking, what is this relationship with work going to look like? And it came up with like kind of 4 predictions. I've seen all 4 of them kind of in play right now in the field. The first one is react. So just react to what the market's doing. Like, oh my gosh, salaries are going up, people need this and that, and just doing those kind of things. That has pros and cons. It's creating some problems in the workplace when we're putting a lot of money with some people, and the people who have been here aren't getting that. We'll go into that if we need to later. That's one push. Another one is this impersonal, like, that's okay, these are cogs and wheels, just like, we'll get another one. There's plenty of people out there. We'll go get some from other countries that we can pay lower wages, those kinds of things. Again, pros and cons. Works for some industries, some not. This kind of professional relationship. So I'm seeing some of this. I'm seeing more like sabbaticals, more paid time off. I'm going to come work, but like all the things I'm passionate about, maybe I'll go be part of nonprofits. I'll go teach kids how to code. I'll do these other, work on the trails. That's what I do. These other things. But we'll keep it professional. And then these are by no means in order. The last one they offer is this kind of community, communal, purposeful one where the people are there for a shared purpose. And they, not on a poster, not that kind of thing, but why they're there is like about how they hire and promote and collaborate and those kinds of things. Really interesting to think of all 4 of those things. I've seen some companies kind of like do all of them a little bit, experimenting with where they think things might go. But so there's this kind of work thing that we're trying to figure out. What's work? And then there's workspace. And sometimes I think people go to space because it's a little bit easier, like it's a physical thing. We can kind of figure that out, But, like, where is our office? Where is it? Is it upstairs in this room? Is it in the back of my van when I'm sitting at the beach? Is it in another country? There's a whole bunch of experiments going on right now with that. And we've known this. It's not like the workplace. We've had experiments with hot desks and cubes and all these kinds of things going on for years and years. And some of them bombed famously. I mean, they just did not work. But, those experiments, we're going to do more of these experiments coming forward. Because as we were asking before, when does it make sense? What do we need each other for? What has to be done best together, like really together? And what kind of environment supports those needs? We had that before, and now that we've been home, we've had a lot more time to think about this and think through these things. When does it make sense to be in the office? I still have clients right now that, because Tuesday through Thursday we need to be in the office, we go into the office, dress up, go in the office, put on our headphones and sit in the cubicle for 10 hours and then we go home. And so we're missing, I think, the learning of what does that space need to be about? It'll be different for different organizations, whether it's like a social space, a collaborative space. some learning, some social learning rooms and things like that. And I think to go to your point, Andy, that you brought in so well at the beginning, this idea of inclusion and community, people are going to have different needs depending on their role in the company and what's going on in their lives and stuff. And so to be listening to understanding the needs and kind of design an experiment around that. And last point to this, there's, just recently within the last week, there was a HBR article is talking about, so is everyone selling their offices or what's going on? Lots of really cool things. People are doing offsites on-site, these little mini offsites on-site, which is kind of an interesting idea, or renting space to have a little mini offsite in a region. But people aren't ditching their offices yet, even though we're in there, 30% less of the time, just a couple percentage off are people getting rid of the office, at least as of yet. And most people seem like we're kind of gravitating, not surprisingly, to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in the office, and then some other things. I have other clients trying things. One is trying, split the teams in half the team's in this whole week, and then they're home the next week. So that works for them. People can do their appointments and stuff on those off weeks. And so there's lots of experiments going on. And I'll say this with somewhat confidence that we'll continue to experiment, because we're not going to figure it out in April 1st. By gosh, here's what we're going to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most exciting things that I'm seeing, and I've been in the startup ecosystem for a number of years now, with New York Tech Alliance for the last 9, and we've had an office, we haven't had an office, like we've moved around. When pre-COVID, a lot of my activity was actually in-person meetings around the city, so I really wasn't at a desk a lot of time. And so I'm when COVID hit and I was behind my computer on a full-time basis in my own home, it wasn't quite as a shock and a transition for me, because I was already kind of a nomadic worker, right? So I was very happy to already have some of those skills in place. But I was hearing from some of my colleagues and friends that were more used to the traditional workforce, the challenges in some of the things that you mentioned, like how do you create accountability with your team? How do you communicate with your team? How do you empower the natural conversations that occur when you bring people together in a virtual space? And we've in the last 2 years we've seen all kinds of experiments with that, this air meet being a product of kind of like a one of those experiments, and just seeing that. But do you have any like, I guess, not advice, but more like, how does a leader in this current role manage all of that? Like, what do they need to be looking for? What do they need to be focused on? Are there central themes that continue from prior to COVID that need to remain, or do we need to just shake everything up and kind of start fresh?
Yeah, well, I think that's a great question. I think there is some change element to it, but I'll go back. The same ecosystem, everything that's in here, it's like we have a kaleidoscope and all the pieces are in there. We're just like clicking away like mad and everything's moving around. But that should bring us some peace, because okay, here's what we're working with. And as leaders, some of the things we knew we needed to work on that we kind of left for second were the people part, the engagement piece, the communication, the inclusion, the coaching. I don't have time, for those kinds of things, because I'm doing these things. And now, if you have friends that are micromanagers, I'm pretty sure they're stressing out right now, because it's very, very difficult to be a micromanager, because I can't see people and they're not in their cubicles, so I know they're not working. And we know that's not true for the most part. And so, again, the big spotlight is on leaders doing these people things well, like shifting a little bit away from kind of process and those kinds of things, more to connection and purpose and engagement of all this talent, a lot of which is untapped, in my opinion, sitting there waiting for us to help them bring it to bear on whatever our company's working on. One of the things I've really noticed, and I knew this was something to work on ahead of time, several years ago, and we were working on it, is this idea of alignment and being clear about what direction we're going, what is success. You remember when we used to do like 10-year business plans and all that, and then we like 3 to 5, and like I have clients that are doing like quarterly business plans right now because things are moving so quickly and they've had to make shifts, and they're doing well. But like communicating that to the team now that they're spread out is a gap, I think, for a lot of us. And this is our time to step into that and finally take a hold of some of those things. And we've talked about listening. We've probably all been to like active listening class and all those kinds of things. But I'm talking about like really listening, and really for 1 or 2 minutes to do things. I'll give you one example. I have a thing I call a hall pass that I talk to like the C-suite members that I work with. Because remember, I used to be able to say to them, before we get on our coaching call, I want you to go on a 15-minute walk and find out a couple awesome things that have happened in the last week. So they would, get out of their office and roam around. Well, they kind of can't do that. So now I call it the virtual hall pass, where they have to like make 1 or 2 or 2 minute phone calls. And you can learn a lot in 1 or 2 minutes. If you ask good questions, you're checking in, not on people, check in. How's it going? How are you preparing for this meeting with a client in a few minutes? How do you think that last meeting went? What's the coolest thing you're working on? All those kinds of things where you can engage and listen. We didn't really talk about different thinking too much, but different thinking needs to be applied to our meetings, our collaboration, our communication. Definitely two-way communication. We've been trying to work on that forever. This is our time to do that with teams. And, to have some grace for yourself. You're going to kind of stumble and whatever. It's okay. Just like do it. Experiment. Say, I'm doing an experiment, and do it.
Yeah, I have to say that that's probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned over the last 2 years is the ability to just be truthfully transparent and honest and say, we're experimenting with this. We're going to see how it works, and not being afraid to run those experiments quickly and see, falling back on like that startup mentality, right? Like iterate fast and grow and learn. And I think that's been super important during this time. I love the points that you brought up. I love the idea of like a quarterly business plan. I realized that I was doing that without. As soon as you said it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I've been incorporating, and I didn't even realize it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do love that idea. Planning for shorter sprints in the current moment because things are changing, right? Like you're surprised constantly, and you can't be surprised anymore, right? Like there's going to be unknowns that you're encountering almost on a weekly basis.
Stand in surprise. That's what I call it. It's like, it's a little bit, Andy, like, us our coaching training I went through. Probably one of the most valuable things was some improv training. They were literally, if you said, tell a joke, I'll pay you $1 million, I couldn't do it. But the idea of like having confidence to stand in the unknown, what is going to happen next, but knowing you have these things that you can pull from, and you got all this awesome talent around you to be able to take something, an offer, as we call it in improv, and do something with it. That is a skill I'd like to see leaders get better at. We're still holding on to, like, I'm holding on to the skills I know, all these things. I was a good salesperson, now I'm a sales leader. I'm holding on to that, how to do it, and to shift more to this way of being where, just like you said, I can come up with an experiment. I'm going to do it. I'm going to assess it, and I'm going to take what I learned and move on. And helping the team do that. This is where I think we need to go.
Yeah,
I want to just play in one thing, Andy, quickly on this too, is if you haven't done it, team, I would offer, this is going back to my old Army officer days, to do an after action review on some period of time, whether it's 2021, the second half of 2021, if you want to do that. But literally, very simply, these are simple questions, but they can be very, very rich, and it helps your team think like this too. To use these questions to examine what's happened so we can go forward. So what worked well? And you can do it if we just did an experiment this morning. I'm going to do it after we do this today. What worked well, right? And there's a lot that worked well. We did things we never thought we would do in the last couple of years. We probably didn't want to know that we knew how to do. And we don't want to miss that. I mean, that's what we get. That was an awesome MBA that we got exposed to there, whether we want to or not. And we want to take that forward, and we want our teams to take that forward and where they're playing. So what worked well? What didn't work so well? What that didn't go the way we wanted it to or thought it would or whatever. Get some of those out. And in this case, I want to share, order is important. Talk about what went well first. What didn't go so well? What did we learn? Okay, get that out, and then make meaning of it. And then lastly, what's next? How do we take these things forward? We learned so much in the last year too about ourselves, our team, our customers, our communities, and to leave that on the table to be like, oh my gosh, thank God we're through that. Moving on, let's get down the road. That is a miss. It is a miss. Because there's so many things there we can use going forward that can really help accelerate our businesses. We don't ever want to go through some of those things again, but let's take the learning, let's walk through those things and take the learning and go forward. So I wanted to poke that in, and thank you for letting me take the time to do that, friend.
No, absolutely. That was really valuable. I appreciate that. I do want to transition the conversation a little bit to our teams, right? Like the employees that we're managing, the workers that we interact with on a daily basis, and just that part about motivation and what keeps an employee happy and satisfied. And as leaders, I you mentioned the Great Resignation, the Great reassessment, and we're hearing these terms turned around, and we're hearing about employees reevaluating their lives, what works for them, what do they want to do, are they truly finding value in their current role? And I'd love to hear your thoughts on kind of like what leaders in an organization can do, whether at every stage, whether they're have one direct report or a team of 60 to 100. Like, how do they continue to keep their teams motivated, and what can a company do to help maybe stop that leak from that they're experiencing? And aside from salary, right? Like salary, you and I have talked about this a little bit, but I want to think about things other than salary, because salary is not a long-term solution, in my opinion. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. But just I'll stop there and let you.
Well, I've got some data here, Andy, that like we always hear about salary, and even my clients are telling me, oh my gosh, I did this and somebody else offered them that, and but there's a lot of other stories, and often data will show us that salary is not 1, 2, 3, or 5 of importance. We talk about it, but what we don't talk about are really the things that do keep us there. We know through Gallup, decades of research, that the number one reason people stay or leave is their direct leader. And so again, we've known this for a long time. We've kind of like, yeah, we know it, but over here, this is our time, I think, to understand what's going on there and to drive forward and put our effort. The teams are rewarding us with their staying with their feet or walking away based on some of this. We've known about engagement. All these pieces of engagement completely make sense. I use the Gallup stuff because it's short, the Q12, it's short, and it makes sense. I know what's expected of me. Give me direction. Tell me what success is. I have the tools I need to do it. I get recognition. One of my favorites for right now, how we're all spread out. At work, my opinion counts. Like, it doesn't mean we do what you want, but like it matters. My voice matters in here. People want to be part of this thing that has purpose. Another huge one, Andy, you and I have talked about this, is development. Someone cares about my development. There's a lot of work that we're doing right now that maybe especially in these smaller companies like the ones I work with, there's 150 to maybe 600, 700 employees, that kind of range. There's not a lot of like steps up. And so we're working with people more, a lot of them, especially in tech, they want exposure to projects and to learn. This is what I hear. I'm not a technical engineer, but they're happy to be on something that they're really going to have to learn a ton of things about or get exposed to building certain things and things like that. And like that is what keeps people engaged and connected to things. And then there's some really interesting research, and Gallup has this too. One of their statements is that I have a best friend at work.
Hmm.
The number one reason people stay at where they are is because they're close to their colleagues and their leaders. That is a glue. And I was just talking to a CEO that I've been coaching for about a year or so, and he's done an amazing job. He's very smart. He's kind of getting bored, and it's time for him to have more plants and do more things. And he feels a little stuck. And he's had offers to go, 50% of salary and all these other kind of things. And I say, well, what are you going to do? And he won't leave, or he tells me he's not going to leave because he loves his team. He's worked really hard to create this team. These are his people, his colleagues. We trust each other, all those things. And it's so valuable to him, even though there's hundreds of thousands of dollars available to him and other things. He still wants that feeling and experience. And so, if we think about let's go put this whole ecosystem back.
Mm-hmm.
The workplace, what is work like as leaders? How are we connecting people? How are we making sure they have time for their friends, family, colleagues, and that they're doing those kinds of things? How are we creating spaces physically and virtually for them to do that? What am I asking about them connected to those things? It all fits together. But if I were going to summarize that, step into the part about the team using their gifts. That multiplicative factor there is, we know engagement and performance are highly correlated. It's a no-brainer. It's hard to go after. It's a no-brainer to go after. I work on that every day. I think this is like the promise of people. All this talent that we have that's untapped is like figuring out how to do that better every day.
Yeah, I love that. Some of the things that you mentioned around employees feeling connected to their leaders, and Michael just put it in the chat, empathy, right? Like empathy has been issued a lot. And, especially during this time, I feel like empathy and kindness are kind of characteristics that are really going to allow leaders to connect with their employees in a more human way. I think that that's kind of one of the things that I've seen conversations shift quite dramatically over the last couple of years. Is just how to lead with kindness, how to lead with that empathetic upfront, that piece of empathy upfront, because we are all experiencing this crazy thing. And we're all realizing that we're very human in our own lives. So I loved that part that you mentioned. You also mentioned about learning and growing and being educated on the job. Somebody recently, I heard a quote from a manager of people that was saying, they feel successful as a manager when their employees are able to leave in 3 years to get the job, their dream job somewhere else. And I thought that was very unique because it really hit on that piece, right? Like that, to me, what that showed is that manager, that leader was really cared about the future success of that employee, and not just what they were doing in that current role. And I've seen a lot of conversations around that, and I tend to agree. I think, in today's world, we can't expect people to stay at a job for 40 years anymore. And so what does that mean? How do you encourage your employees to grow, continue to learn, and push forward? And I feel like that just leads to increased productivity overall. But thank you so much for sharing that. One of those things that you mentioned is about, we've mentioned empathy and compassion. One of the things that I wanted to make sure that we touched on was just this period of time of just chaoticness, and how that impacts employees' mental health and well-being. How does a leader manage a team that is, enduring all of this traumatic stress? And then how do they, as a leader, manage their own mental health and well-being, right? Like, how do they make sure that they're not getting burnt out to the point where they're no longer of service to their employees. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on those pieces.
Yeah, I mean, just first off, a lot has happened to all of us as humans, but things were happening before. We all had our struggles and our grief and our loss and our happiness and, loneliness and depression and all those kinds of things before. Has it ticked up according to most articles that you read? Yes. A high number of people, most people feel less connected to each other than they did over the last couple of years. And that includes all of us. I mean, this is the difficulty, and I think, again, the possibility of what's happening. We see some of the best, most, I don't want to say the best, that's the wrong term, the most effective leaders are the ones that are showing vulnerability to say, here's how I'm feeling, to the degree that you're able to do that. Here's what I'm doing about it. Here's how I recharge. Here's how I know I'm hitting my burnout zone. I think is it SAP, the CEO of SAP is like the torchbearer there for championing, mental health, how it's part of our culture. This is starting to emerge as,
Mm-hmm.
An element, a complex element of DEI and inclusion that, remember in the past, we've all had there's an individual that is struggling with something. And so, we give them the EAP number or something like this. And we thought, I'm doing something. Well, that has really taken some leaps forward now. And I like this idea, again, ecosystem of this, mental health is a collective issue. Right? It impacts all of us, and we all have a role in that. Helping. So some of the companies I see, obviously there's lots of benefits. People have raised the benefits in terms of either time off, child care, wellness stuff for, go volunteer and do other things that are your passions and those kinds of things. There's, emergency resource groups, that you can be members of, and all kinds of different things that are like, your people, you can talk with each other. But again, let's go back to the ecosystem and us. Like, there's things about communication and being there for people, even if you only have 2 minutes, to be there for them and listen like wholly in that moment. And if you only have 2 minutes, say, I only have 2 minutes, but I wanna check in with you. How are you? Here's how I'm doing. I had to go take a break earlier today and go for a walk. How are you doing? How's the dog? How's the baby? And those kinds of things. Another part, let's bring the work part in. Just flexibility helps people with mental health, knowing that like I can take the time to take care of these things in my life, to take a break, to call a friend, to have the flexibility to do what I need to set my needs and still hit what I need to do for work. I'm seeing more, what people are looking for, even if you go back to talent and like, where do I want to move? I'm leaving my job, and a lot of folks leave their job because of this stress and this lack of people caring for them. And so they're looking for a place to be part of that. And I see that is what they're looking for. They're looking for cultures where they feel like there is a culture of connection, of care in these places. And it can't be on a poster. I think we've all figured out now that we can read through that. But what's really going on in these places that we're showing that we care for people's mental health? It is a big leap. I think we're going to do a lot of this work in the future. I mean, the stats are, I think 80% of us are going to have likely to have a mental health event in our lifetime. 80%. So it is us. It is us. And again, leaders, we're on the front line. It doesn't mean we solve it. We can't solve grief and loss and those kinds of things, but we certainly can show empathy and care and be in it together.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned checking in, right? And taking a couple of minutes to check in.
Mhm.
You said that a couple of times, and I just want to mention a tool that I've demoed actually at New York Tech Meetup a couple of months ago, called Super Quick Question, and it's this Slack integration that sits in your Slack channel, but it allows managers and team members to just schedule like a minute question to pop in, just like you would in an office setting, and say, I have a super quick question, and it connects them, and you have a minute to have that conversation, and then you go on with the day. But it's really the thesis around that is creating these moments of checking in, or just not needing to schedule a half hour to sit down, just super quick
Exactly.
question, super quick check-in. And I really love that idea uh, coming around. I'm going to pause there and see what kind of questions we have from the audience. If you have a question for Sue or I that you'd like to get answered, please be sure to put it into the Q&A portion. I see that we have one here that is actually going back to like the remote work and managing remote workforces around, it's something that I've been hearing a lot about, how do you maintain privacy and security as a business, and managing a lot of those, you know, uh, those parts of the business that you need to keep. And I've had that question too, just interacting with people who are working remotely, and then just amount of data that exists, and how are you seeing leaders kind of manage that in their teams?
Yeah, well, I'll leave the highly technical part of that answer to others. I can talk about it. For me, it's like managing all the other things. It's like, one, being really clear about expectations with folks. And I don't mean telling them one time I told them what they are, but like hearing back, like a person can put those expectations into play so they understand really what it means. And if I'm sitting in a coffee shop, what are the things I need to be worried about or looking for or whatever, or having certain conversations or any of those things, and when do I need to use other resources or set boundaries? And that's not a one-time conversation. It's not a read the handbook and like sign it and tell me you did, but really, like, again, that goes back to, I love these 1 minute things. I teach a coaching, when you're really good at this kind of leader coaching, you're asking questions to learn in 1 minute so you can connect with something, help them be successful next. This is a really good example of just, you got that meeting with so-and-so today, or you're working in this and such place, kind of walk me through what are some things you're thinking about to make sure you keep everything safe. And that's how we just connect. We're asking questions, and we find out we're on track. So I think, again, like, I hear very often, if not daily, oh, I've told the team that, they know it. And it's not like I want you to retell, just have a conversation about it, connect. Tell me how it's going for you. What's the difficult part of that privacy piece? Let's talk about it.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned kind of moving it into off the wall and into the culture. I think is really what I got from that, right? Like, how do you take it from just being presented and actually integrate it into the everyday conversation? How do you make it part of the top of mind for every employee that's coming to work for you, or that's working with you, so that you're thinking about, okay, I need to be cognizant of X, Y, and Z moving forward. So I love that. Let's
Yeah.
see, do we
Have them teach it back to you, Andy. I'm serious. That's how you know they know it. It's like, well, tell me how you going to do it today, and this when you go visit your client or whatever. And then you can give them a way to go, or you can learn how they're seeing the world, and you can coach where you need to. But rather than us just like saying, that doesn't really stick too well.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a great question in the chat, and I think this ties us back to like the broader themes that you've been experiencing and just the whole conversation overall. But aside from like remote workplaces or managing teams, what are some of the biggest concerns that leaders are coming to you with, and what areas are they wanting to really talk about?
Yeah, so many. I have all different industries and everything, they have an array of things. But one of the things I see, I think it's based on the size business I have is most of them, some to more degree than others, have kind of outgrown their structure that served them way back when they were 12 people, and now they're 200 people.
Mhm.
And so they are scrambling to make some mistakes and just take an org chart and start putting names in and things like that, when it would help to step back and say, use some different thinking, like what assumptions am I making right now, and like how could I put these things together. It's all about, I'll use that kaleidoscope again, it's all about, in this ecosystem, here's all these things I have to work with, how can I continue to work and arrange them to achieve and keep going in the direction we're going. And so I see that a lot, and I see I'm seeing a lot of mistakes right now with things where we're, like I said, we're putting a lot of money, and we want this person, we get them, and then we've got a $60,000 gap between the people that have been on the team working really hard. And now, don't try to think that people won't know, because they will figure it out, and that creates lots of drama and lack of engagement and things. So I'm seeing some things there that get people to help you think through how to do some things like that. Different business models, including people's voice in figuring things out. This is a great time to up your collaboration game, not just for what product are we making, but anything. What process, like how can this thing be better? Anything. It doesn't have to take a long time. So I see a lot of opportunity for that. The ones that are really picking up on, like I said, experiments and like checking your assumptions and reframing things and asking better questions are really starting to move faster and ahead.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I think that comes to not just in the business perspective, but also like the employee satisfaction that you mentioned before, and the we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, but that equity piece is the part that I find that a lot of businesses really struggle with, and you can create a super diverse workforce, and you can be inclusive and have that language be there, but if you're not creating that opportunity for equity, for the voices to be heard as part of the business, then that's it doesn't work, right? Like it doesn't create that culture of belonging and that feeling from employees that they're really part of the team. And so I think I love that you've mentioned that quite feedback and feeling like your voice is heard. And I think as human beings, that's really truly at the center of what we all want, right? Like and what we all desire. So I love that point. Well, we're about to run to time, so to quickly wrap up the conversation, first I want to say thank you to you providing your time today for this conversation, and just the insights that you've been able to share. I'm going to throw up the themes from the conversation again, so people have time to kind of take a look at them and digest them. We covered many of these. Just everything is super connected. The only thing is uncertainty. So live in that surprise, like you said. Mental health, like mental and physical models of new work style, and then talent. How do we manage and keep talent going, and the new future of leadership. So it's been really fantastic, and we connected on this connectedness, this mental health, and I really appreciate all of the gems that you were able to provide in the conversation here, and I appreciate your time today. And you sent me the slide, warm, cozy, fuzzy feeling, and I feel like we got a little bit closer today. So I wanted to say thank you for that. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask you some questions that I would ask you around a campfire setting like this. And you mentioned your time as a army officer. Is that correct? And in previous conversations, you talked a little bit about your student athlete perspective. So I want to know more. I was hoping that you could share with us kind of a little bit about that experience, and kind of maybe how that's helped you with your leadership style.
Oh my gosh. Well, first, the fire pit, just really quickly, I have about 50 of these pictures, and I use it to create the space of, when you're sitting in a fire pit and you can sit with your friends and have a beverage, you can have this amazing conversation, you can sit in silence, you can stare at the fire and think. I use it with my teens all the time to kind of make the setting of, let's just sit around a fire pit and talk. So I love it. I picked one with snow for you guys because I feel
Perfect.
like for you. Gosh, I do want to share one thing. I'm the least violent person you would ever meet. I stumbled into the military after a couple years out of college because I wanted to go to grad school. And so that wasn't planned in that way. But I'll tell you the thing that I really got from that time, it was a, peaceful time. And it was I'm going to tell you when it was in the mid 80s where the economy wasn't doing that well. There were all kinds of people from all walks of life, as you imagine, volunteer army, had college degrees, couldn't find a job, privates in the army. And one of the things as a kid who, I grew up in foster homes and had my own childhood struggles, and you're in this kind of cauldron with people that are trying to find their gifts and find something to belong to and feel valued. That's how I saw it. I meant to stay for 3 years. I stayed 10 years. I had amazing jobs as a company commander and taught fitness all around the world and all those things. But the core of why is because every day, and I still get to do this today, every day I saw my reason on this earth is to help people find their gifts, feel like they matter, be connected, and do something cool in the world. And that started it for me. And then I kind of ran all around the country doing all kinds of things in big companies and small, and my own company, and now Insperity, to help businesses figure out how to do that. And I sleep 4 hours a night, not because of the puppy, but because I get the puppy, but because I just love that work and the promise of what is there. Yeah, it's just amazing.
Yeah, I love that. I really do love that. And that does come through in your conversation and the way that you think about things. So again, I really, really appreciate that. And what about your student athletes days? What was your sport?
Oh, I call myself seasoned. I'm sure you can tell it was quite a while ago. Yeah, and I'm still in pretty darn good shape. So don't bet me on any push-ups, Andy.
I would.
Do that. But yeah, so I love all the good sports, basketball and field hockey and track and those kinds of things. Today, I work on the Pacific Crest Trail. It is for 9 months out of the year. We can't get to some of it now. And I'm a certified sawyer, so I know how to cut the kind of dangerous trees that have fallen across the trail. And I lead crews out there and such, and spend just about every weekend, several days a weekend doing that in the summers. And that keeps me in darn good shape because we use old lumberjack saws, and it's 12 miles of hiking. And if you're not hiking, you're sawing yourself to death. And yeah, it's good exercise. You can eat whatever you want after that.
That's amazing. And then lastly, what's one thing that's one great thing that's happened to you either recently or that you're looking forward to?
That is a good question. Well, I did mention, that I have a new puppy, and my dear companion, black lab Birch, passed. You can probably see a picture of him. There he is, right there. Last summer, and it was a really tough thing for me to handle. So I have a new yellow lab puppy named Emerson, and we are starting our learning journey together. And it is really fun to see him learn. He's really smart. And that's pretty exciting. It's also exhausting, but it's really fun. Yeah.
He's adorable for everybody in the audience. I got to see him on a previous call, and he's absolutely adorable.
Yeah.
But thank you so much again, Sue, for the fantastic conversation. I have really enjoyed our time together and getting to know you and getting to hear your thoughts about leadership and some of the tools and resources that you and the way that you think about it are really phenomenal. So if anybody in the audience would like to connect with Sue, please be sure to connect with her LinkedIn. We also have her email available that we'll be putting in the chat for you to connect with her one-on-one. Sue has graciously made that offer to provide time for anybody who reaches out through the event. I'd also like to say thank you to Insperity for sponsoring this event. We have a couple of the Insperity territory reps in the audience. So if you want to learn about Insperity, Sean and I'm sorry, I'm horrible with names. Is it Jennifer?
Jennifer.
Yeah, Sean and Jennifer from Insperity are in the audience, so feel free to connect with them to learn more. To learn more about us, again, nytech.org is our website. We encourage you to check out all of our future events, and I hope to see you at the event on Tuesday evening at 5:30. Again, great demos. Real quickly, lightning recommendations. Any books or podcasts that you're absolutely loving right now?
You know who I love is Alyssa Cohn, who you've probably heard of. I think she at least has one residence here in New York. She has a book out right now from about startups, and gosh, what's the title of it? From Startup to Grown Up, I want to say is the title of it. Just came out a month or two ago. I adore her. She is like I want to like learn everything I can from her, but like real deal, excellent information about growing your business. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Startups to grown-ups. I'll have to check it out. I just finished a book by David Siegel, the CEO of Meetup, and it was really awesome. It's called Decide and Conquer. It's coming out next month, and it's full of a lot of really great ways that leaders are making make decisions and characteristics that leaders should follow. So I definitely recommend that. So startup, what was it? Startup to grown up, or and then Decide and Conquer. 2 recommendations from us today. We hope that you take them with you. And with that, thank you to everyone in the audience for participating and being here today. If you would like to connect with any of us, we'll be around for a few minutes in the networking lounge to connect with anybody after the event. And again, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure, and have a great afternoon.
See y'all.